Greetings, Ian from R.T.O here, and welcome to a brand new show on the channel. Something we're going to start on a Thursday now, and we are calling it Battle of the Debuts. Now this is all about those debut albums of some of our favourite bands and the band rivalries, etc. So what's going to happen, I'm going to pick two albums, we're going to discuss them, go through the tracks as normal, mark them, and then I'll decide which one I prefer out of the two. And then when you've watched it, in the comments below I would like you to put which one you prefer. And then next week, it won't be on the Let's live stream next Thursday because there isn't one, which you'll explain in the live stream tonight. But on the Saturday we're having a birthday bash. I will announce which album you guys prefer out of the two. So it'll be today we've got two greats of heavy metal, and then we'll go through different genres, and when you get band rivalries we'll go through their debut albums as well. So all good fun, and you know, you can get involved as more now, and you can choose which album you think was a better debut album. So today we are going with two bands that were up there at the beginning of the new wave of British heavy metal. So today we've got Saxon and Iron Maiden by Iron Maiden, two self-titled debut albums. And how I will do this, I will do it in the order that they were released. So we're going to start off with Saxon's debut album, Saxon. It was released in 1979, recorded at the Livingstone Studios, produced by John Verity, and the tape operator was Robert Price. Now the band that made this debut album is Biff Byford on vocals, Graham Oliver on guitar, Paul Quinn on guitar, Steve Dawson on the bass guitar, Pete Gill on the drums. First lineup of Saxon. First track on this album is a track called Rainbow Theme. Now this starts off with a great opening bass from Steve Dawson. Then you get Graham Oliver and Paul Quinn coming in with some great riffs. One thing all through this band's career, we have got great riffs. And then it goes a little bit mellow, and some great vocals from Biff on this one. Really good track. And then it sort of goes straight into the next track, which is Frozen Rainbow. Starts off with that amazing guitar solo. Now I'm not sure if it's Paul or Graham that does it, but it's an amazing guitar solo, and it sort of continues on from Rainbow Theme. It is pretty good. It's a really good start to the album. So next track is Big Teaser. Again, already we've got these strong riffs, a great bass line from Steve Dawson. It really gets your feet tapping, this does. It's a really good song. It's actually one of my favourites on the album. I just think it's a great little track. Then we get Judgment Day. This is an excellent track. Starts off with Pete Gill's drumming. What a drummer Pete Gill is. Absolutely stunning stuff. More driving riffs from Graham and Paul. And then we've got Biff, of course, singing as strong. He still sounds like this today in some respects. So that was the end of side one. Flip the album over and to side two, and it opens up with one of the truly first classics from Saxon, Stallions of the Highway. My favourite track on this album, without a doubt. It's just, even at this early stage, you knew you was getting something good. It's just absolutely brilliant. Proper late 70s heavy metal. Great riffs, great drumming, Biff on fire, terrific bass line, brilliant stuff. Then we get another classic, Backs to the Wall. You know, debut album, and it's still got tracks on this that people still want to hear live today. This just sounds great. It's great riffing. It's got a terrific bass line to this. Good drumming. It is just a fantastic track. We all love that one. Then the next track is called Still Fit to Boogie. I think this is one of the forgotten songs on this album because it has got some driving riffs and a terrific bass line from Steve Dawson. It's one of my favourite tracks on the album. And it's just one of those that people forget about. And then the last track on this album is Militia Guard. This is the military type songs that Biff has written all through his career. I would say this is probably the weakest track on the album, but doesn't make it a bad track at all. It's just a typical heavy metal, but I don't think it's got the same punch as like Stallions of the Highway, Backs to the Wall, Still Fit to Boogie. So just have a recap of the out tracks on this album is Rainbow Theme, A Frozen Rainbow, A Big Teaser, Judgment Day, Stallions of the Highway, Backs to the Wall, Still Fit to Boogie, and Militia Guard. Well, what do I think of this album? Well, I've always liked this album. It's got some great tracks on here, and they still sound good today. I can't fault this album. It was something different for the time. It was new, it was fresh. You know, punk was sort of on the wane, and next thing was the new wave of British heavy metal. And it's just a great album. Probably, you know, if you watch my review album ranking on it, it didn't. I think it was about midway or something. But it's an album I play a lot. I've still got quite an affection for this. So that's what I think. So I did find a few reviews. Eduardo Riveda of AllMusic gave the album 3 stars out of 5. In his mixed review, he described it as one of the quiet before the storm. He did criticise their lack of experience in the studio. They're a young band. And I think the other fault, and I think a lot of people have said this, is their record label, the French label Carrera, not knowing how to capture that heavy metal sound on time. And they just didn't know how to really promote it either. Martin Popoff said, judge the album as meeky recorded and timid in execution, harkening back to many 70s styles, one that barely fits together with mere hints of more uncompromising forms of metal that Saxon would produce. Yeah, I can't really argue with that. It is a little bit weak, but it's still an affectionate album. AllMusic gave it 3 stars. Collector's Guide to Heavy Metal gave it 5 out of 10. And it debuted at number 6 in the UK rock charts. I can't find if it got into the mainstream, but number 6. So let's have a look at the nuts and bolts of this one. Same sort of format. Song quality. There's some really good songs on this. Tell that, you know, that Biff was going to write some terrific stuff. I think Rainbow Theme and Frozen Rainbow, the lyrics on that are really good. Stallions of the Night is just absolutely brilliant. So I'm going to give song quality for this album, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. Production. I think the production on this is really good, considering it was 1979. It's clean, it's clear, it's raw. Still hasn't got them heavy metal sound into it, but it's still I think it's a well executed album. Okay, they didn't know how to Carrere didn't, they in their production team didn't know how to really put it together, but I think this is an album that it does sound dated now, but it's still full of nostalgia. So I'm going to give the production for this 5 out of 5, because I think it's, for the time, it was done very, very well. Reception. It was a mixed reception from the critics. Fans wise, I think it went down quite well with the fans. I remember when this came out that, you know, the people I hung about with at school all thought it was pretty good. So I'm going to give, for reception, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5. Now the cover. I think this lets it down a little bit, you know, and I think that may have had something to do with the record sales. It needed to be a little bit more. I mean, it's got the sword and the, you know, the Saxon, but it doesn't say what it really is. So for covers on, I can only give it a 3 out of 5. So the total for Saxon by Saxon is 16 out of 20. Okay, next contender please. And coming up a year later, we have this little gem, Iron Maiden, Iron Maiden, released on the 14th of April 1980, recorded at the Kingsway Studios in West London, and it took only 13 days. That's not too bad. Producer was Will Malone, Martin Levin was the engineer, and Iron Maiden on this was, vocals were done by Paul Di'Anno, the bass and backing vocals Mr. Steve Harris, lead guitar Dave Murray, rhythm guitar Dennis Stratton, Clive Burr drums. Opens up with the fantastic Prowler. Wow. Classic. Opening riff from Dave Murray and Mr. Stratton. Boom, boom, boom. Brilliant. Booming bass from Steve, and that ripping vocal from Paul Di'Anno. It's just a classic. Second track, a little bit subdued. You know, you get this real raunchy start, and then you get this more progressive song called Remember Tomorrow. You didn't expect this, but it's got a great bass line from Steve Harris, and it did show Paul Di'Anno's singing was pretty good. I mean, even Bruce Dickinson sings this good. So it's a really, really good track, and I like how it just speed up, and it's got a terrific guitar solo on it. And again, third track on this album is the iconic Running Free, one of the tracks of the 80s, or the early 80s, isn't it? Starts off with that lovely drumming from Clive. It's still a firm favourite today. Been in crowds where we've been singing it. It's just an amazing track. I love the guitar runs in this. It's just a fantastic track. Side 1 closes with probably the best song on the album, the fantastic Phantom of the Opera. The guitar at the beginning of this is brilliant. It's so heavy, hard. Paul Di'Anno's finest performance on this album. Very punky, really good sound. Still remains a firm favourite today. So we flip it over. First track on side 2 is the instrumental Transylvania. Oh, it's okay. I don't mind it. It's got some great guitar work on it and drums. Next track is Strange World. Now, I think personally this is probably one of the weaker tracks on the album. It doesn't seem to pick up any momentum. It sort of meanders around. It's like being on a roundabout going round and you just can't get on or off of it. But I will say that I like the guitar solo from Dave Murray on it. It's pretty good. Then we get another sort of classic, Charlotte the Harlot. It's a good track, but it's not one of my favourites. There's a lot of people that rave about this one, but for me it's just a good solid track, and I don't dislike it, don't get me wrong, but I prefer, out of the two sides, I think side 1 is the better side. And then the last track on this is of course Iron Maiden. Now when this track came out I loved it. I thought it was brilliant, but I think as time's gone on, I don't know if is it because it's on every concert. It's got a great bass line in it, it's got some good guitar work. But I'm probably gonna upset a lot of people when I say I think Paul Di'Anno's vocals are not very good on this, and I think when it's done live now, Bruce sings it much better. He puts a bit more heart and soul into it. Especially when he talks about how he's going to get you, he really gives it that angry sort of to it. But it's just on this album. This was a great debut album. It took the world by storm, didn't it? Just one of the great debut albums, metal debut albums. Everything about it. It's good. These songs always sound better live, I think. So I love this album. Now, do I love it more than the other one? I don't know. It's quite hard. This one is. So that's what I think. Let's see what the critics think of this one. On its release, the album received immediate critical acclaim. Jeff Barton from Sounds hailed it as heavy metal for the 1980s in its binding speed and rampant ferocity, making most plastic heavy rock tracks from the 60s and the 70s sound sloth-like and funeral dirgy. This spent initially 15 weeks on the UK album chart, and then it was brought out on the Budget Fame in 1985. AllMusic proclaims it would still rank as a landmark even in the Dickinson years had never happened. Had yet not happened. Sputnik Music, excuse me. Sorry about that, folks. Describes it as one of the top 10 albums of the heavy metal world. So All Music gave it 4 and a bit stars. Collector's Guide to Heavy Metal 9 out of 10. Pitchfork 7 out of 10. Record Mirror give it 5 stars. Sounds give it 4, and Sputnik Music give it 4.5. This one actually got to number 4 in the UK album charts. So let's have a look at the nuts and bolts of this one. Song quality. Steve Harris is a great writer. Even today, although musically he sort of drones it, but I think he was a great writer then, and he's still a great writer today. So I'm going to give song quality 5 out of 5. Production. The production on this is awful. It really is. When you consider what the production on the next one was, if only they had have had Martin Birch available to do this one. That's why I think these tracks, even when Paul Di'Anno sang them live, I think the live tracks are the more definitive versions of these songs. I mean, if you've got the Maiden Japan album, well, we had the EP, but there is an album, and it's got some of these tracks on here. I mean, Phantom the Opera is absolutely brilliant live. So can only give this one 3 out of 5. Reception on this went down a storm. One of the most talked about albums of 1980, so it can only get a reception of 5 out of 5. The cover design. This is for the start of the Derek Riggs Eddie. Stunning, absolutely. When you walked in the record shops in 1980, you just saw this. Iconic. It is an iconic cover, but he went on to do better. But for the first real in-your-face Eddie, it was good. So I'm going to give cover design 4 out of 5. So Iron Maiden by Iron Maiden gets a total of 17 out of 20. So it pipped Saxon by 1 point. Which one do I prefer? Oh dear, this is tough. I like both albums for different things. I like the Saxon album for its great production for the time and the rawness, but for songs, heavy, it's got to be Iron Maiden. So I think I'm going to give this, personally, I think out of the two I prefer the Iron Maiden album. So that's what I think. What do you guys think? So what you can do in the comments below, just put Saxon or Iron Maiden. You can put why if you want. Let's see who's going to win this. I'm going to make a prediction, say I think Iron Maiden will win this one, but we'll find that out next week. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Bit different now. I do apologise for saying a rude word. It just come out. I don't know what was going on there, but I do apologise. I don't initially say rude words normally. So that's all for this first episode. I'll be back later with some album artwork. and it was something that come about from a couple of weeks ago when I did Opeth on Then and Now. When you look at the album work, I thought, oh, this is absolutely stunning. I think I'm going to rank this. So that's what we're doing later. We're going to look at the album artwork of Opeth. And then tonight, of course, it's live stream, where I'll be here with Dave, Mastermind Dave, as Charles nicknamed him. Coming up with all your facts. Quick off the ball is Dave. And of course, the star of the show, he seems to get in more publicity than me these days, and that's Rocky, who's fast asleep at the moment. He won't be tonight though, you know what he's like. So I will see you later. Take care for now.